Raffi Martinez had come to the abandoned Zeltharian outpost on Kepler 442c to die in peace. The war had taken everything from him, his left arm, his squadron, and most importantly, his will to keep fighting. The neural shrapnel embedded in his spine sent lightning bolts of pain through his body every few hours, and the doctors had given him 6 months at most. The auction listing had been buried deep in the Colonial Administration surplus database. Abandoned alien structure, no. Utilities, no warranty of habitability. Perfect for a man who no longer cared about living. He'd used his entire disability pension to buy it sight unseen, then caught the last transport to this forgotten rock at the edge of human space. The base was a marvel of bioorganic architecture, its coral-like walls pulsing faintly with bioluminescent veins. The Zeltharians had abandoned it decades ago when their empire collapsed, leaving behind a structure that breathed like a living thing. Raffi had set up his meager belongings in what appeared to be a command center, its surfaces smooth as polished bone. For 3 weeks, he'd existed in a haze of pain medication and regret, watching the alien sunset paint the crystalline spires outside in shades of amber and violet. He'd stopped taking his treatments, stopped caring about the infected wounds that wouldn't heal properly. This was supposed to be where his story ended. Then she arrived. Raffi first noticed the change when the base's bioluminescent patterns shifted from their usual blue-green to a warm golden hue. The walls hummed with what sounded almost like a purr, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with anticipation. He was lying on his makeshift cot when he heard it, a sound like crystalline chimes dancing in a gentle breeze. The creature that materialized in the doorway was unlike anything in the xenobiology textbooks. Where the few known Zeltharians in the databases appeared insectoid and angular, she was fluid grace incarnate. Her translucent skin rippled with patterns of light, and her 4 arms moved with the liquid elegance of underwater dancers. Most striking were her eyes, vast pools of silver that held depths of ancient sadness. "You are hurt," she said, her voice resonating through harmonics that bypassed his ears and spoke directly to his soul. The universal translator in his neural implant struggled with her language, but somehow he understood perfectly. Raffi tried to sit up, his hand instinctively reaching for the pulse pistol he'd left on the floor. Pain shot through his spine, and he collapsed back with a grunt. I bought this place. Legal salvage rights. I have the documentation. Peace, wounded one." She glided closer, her feet, if they could be called that, barely touching the ground. "I am Alvina Miran, daughter of the architects who sang this place into being. I do not contest your claim." The base around them seemed to sigh, its walls pulsing in rhythm with her approach. Raffi realized the structure hadn't been abandoned at all. It had been waiting. "Then why are you here?" he asked, trying to mask the tremor in his voice. Up close, he could see that her luminous patterns weren't just beautiful. They were words, equations, entire symphonies of meaning, written in living light across her skin. "I felt the base's song change," she replied, settling beside his cot, with impossible grace. "For 47 of your years it has been dormant, dreaming of purpose. Then you came, carrying such weight of sorrow, and it began to sing again. Zeltharian architecture responds to emotional resonance. Your pain called to it." Raffi laughed bitterly. "Great. Even alien buildings pity me." "Not pity," Alvina said, and for the first time her voice carried warmth. "Recognition. This base was built as a sanctuary for those who had given too much in service to others. My people called it a healing heart place." She paused, her patterns shifting to deep blues and purples. "I came because I too am broken." Over the following days, their stories unfolded like flowers blooming in fast forward. Alvina had been a healer warrior during the last days of the Zeltharian Empire, watching helplessly as her people's collective consciousness fragmented into isolation and madness. She had survived the great disconnection that scattered her species across the galaxy, but at the cost of her ability to commune with the living networks that were the foundation of her people's existence. "I am the last caretaker of empty places," she told him one evening as they watched the twin moons rise over the crystalline landscape. I tend to the memories of things that no longer are. Raffi found himself opening up in ways he hadn't since before the war. He told her about Earth, about the siege of Proxima Station where he'd held the line for 18 hours straight while civilians evacuated, about watching his friends die one by one, about the plasma burst that had nearly severed his spine and left him a shadow of the soldier he'd been. "Your people sing beautiful songs of defiance," Alvina observed, her patterns shifting to admiring golds and greens. "Even broken, you blaze with the fire that makes stars jealous." "I'm not blazing anymore," Raffi said quietly. "I'm just fading out." But that wasn't entirely true. For the first time in months, he'd been sleeping through the night without nightmares. The base's living walls had begun producing a gentle bioluminescent rhythm that seemed to ease his chronic pain. More importantly, he'd started looking forward to his conversations with Alvina. The turning point came when Raffi's condition suddenly worsened. The neural shrapnel had shifted, sending him into convulsions that his medication couldn't touch. As consciousness faded, he heard Alvina's voice calling his name, felt her hands, warm despite their crystalline appearance, touching his forehead. He awoke to find himself floating in a pool of luminous fluid within the base's heart chamber, a space he'd never seen before. Alvina stood beside the bioorganic tank, her entire body blazing with patterns of intense concentration. "The base is singing your cells back to harmony," she explained, exhaustion evident in her dimming patterns. "But it requires a living consciousness to guide the healing songs. I am not certain I have the strength to complete the process." "Then stop," Raffi said, his voice surprisingly clear. "I didn't ask for this." "Your species has a saying," Alvina replied, managing a smile that was somehow visible despite her alien features. "When you save someone's life, you become responsible for it. You saved mine simply by being here, by reminding me what it means to share stories with another soul. I will not let you fade when there is still so much music left in you." The healing process took days. Alvina poured her life force into the base's biosystems, teaching them the specific harmonics needed to reconstruct Raffi's damaged nervous system. As she did, something extraordinary happened. The base began to sing not just with her voice but with both of theirs, their distinct frequencies weaving together into something entirely new. When Raffi finally emerged from the healing tank, whole for the first time in years, he found Alvina collapsed beside the pool, her patterns barely flickering. "You nearly killed yourself," he said, gathering her fragile form in his arms. "No," she whispered, her patterns brightening slightly at his touch. "I found something worth living for. The base sings with two voices now. It has become something unprecedented, a bridge between our species' ways of understanding the universe." In the weeks that followed, more beings began arriving at the outpost. Other wounded veterans of various species, drawn by rumors of a place where broken souls could find healing. The base expanded, growing new chambers and facilities as needed, fed by the combined will of its two caretakers. Raffi established medical facilities using human technology, while Alvina tended to the deeper wounds of the spirit using Zeltharian bioharmonics. Together they created something neither of their species could have achieved alone, a true sanctuary where the act of healing became its own form of defiance against a universe that seemed determined to break everything beautiful. "You know," Raffi said one evening as they watched new arrivals dock at their expanded landing platform, "I came here to die." Alvina's pattern shifted to amused silver. "And instead you learned to live. Your heart has become quite rebellious, hasn't it?" Raffi smiled, feeling the truth of it resonate through the living walls around them. His heart had indeed become rebellious. Rebellious enough to choose love over loss, connection over isolation, and hope over the comfortable darkness of despair. In learning to heal others, he had discovered that some things were worth fighting. For after all, the base sang around them, a harmony of human determination and Zeltharian grace, proof that even in the vast darkness between stars, two broken souls could create something luminous together.